Hey guys, Stealth here and welcome to Trade Tycoon Tanks. In this game we're going to be building our own tank company. No, not the group of tanks that you might expect. We're going to be designing tanks, we're going to be researching new components, and we're going to be working our way to help our nation of Great Britain. Trade Tycoon Tanks is currently on alpha build. It's a closed alpha, it's available to Kickstarter backers and their Patreon supporters. I'll link that down below in the description so you can find out more about that if you are interested in joining the alpha. Let me stress, it is an alpha. Many things are not ready yet, many things are not yet complete, and many features are simply not there yet. It is very much a stress test of the system to see how well the game performs, gather feedback, and continue developing the game. So, unfortunately, that means that as I'm starting a new game, I can only select Great Britain. As the game progresses, or as the development progresses, you can also start picking other nations. So yes, you could make all sorts of variations to, let's say, the Abrams tank, if you so desire. You can come up with the better version of the T-34, dare I say the T-35. You can, I don't know, create actual viable tanks for Japan, mayhaps. First though, we're gonna go with Great Britain. Now, I'm going to assume that you have not seen this game yet, so if you have, just skip a few minutes ahead and you'll be able to see what the game is like in this current alpha version. I am going to be working with Currahee Armored as my company name. Now, we are starting in 1914. It is very early, and this means that we're not going to be seeing the Abrams, well, for a while, let's say. So, welcome to the closed alpha test. Start your story as the owner of a newly built factory. In the days when the Great War begins to unfold, your task is simple. Design your tanks and make sure your company survives the first months in the game. It is an alpha. Unfortunately, it's not like we're going to be starting in 1914 and progressing all the way to, I don't know, 1995. That's not exactly what this alpha version is going to be doing. It's just going to allow you to play a few months, and with that, get a bit of a hang of the game and see if you like it. Now, we have classified information. There is a tank corps being formed. So the High Command, that's the High Command of Britain. That's the nation that we're going to be serving. Although, I imagine in the full game, you'll also be able to export your tanks. We're going to be serving the High Command, and they've decided to separate all future tank regiments from the Machine Gun Corps and assign them to a dedicated military branch, named the Tank Corps. So, we got a couple of different buildings. In clockwise formation, we have the warehouse. This is where you store all of your resources. The resources are, for example, the ones that you see up here. Iron, medium carbon steel, rubber, high carbon steel, glass, rare metals, ceramic, plastics, and composites. As you can imagine, in 1914 we don't exactly have composites or ceramic tiling or plastics. We're just going to be using mostly iron and some high carbon steel. Next up we have the Design Bureau. Now in the Design Bureau you get to design your vehicles much as you might imagine. However, we don't exactly have a whole lot of options to pick from. If I want to take something that I can already work with, I'm going to have to use this thing. The Mark I. It's completed, it weighs a ton, and it has a couple of different components that still need to get added. You need a power unit, basically a drivetrain, such as an engine like the Daimler Knight 6-cylinder. We have the ability to add tracks, the Centipede Mark I. And once the Centipede is installed, we'll also be able to install the sponsons. These are those side-mounted things that have the guns. There are, however, also in these categories things that are not yet unlocked, such as blueprints. And the game goes, would you like to create a new draft of a new tank component? Because this tank component doesn't exist yet. And I can say, yes, I would like to do so. But right now, I first want to see what the options are. We have the male sponson Mark I. If I want to have a different version of said male sponson, I can do that by using the adjuster. Or I could just say, nope, it's going to be armor plate. Now, why would you want to have this if you can add a gun? Well, you can have a couple of different tanks, a couple of different designs. So you could have one that has, for example, armored plates on both sides and a machine gun out the front. This way, it is just a support vehicle crossing trenches and allowing machine guns to fire out the front. Doesn't have a whole lot of firepower, but it might be cheaper. So here already you're starting to see what sort of design decisions you're going to make. Let's assume, however, for the moment that I want to have something that has a bit more firepower. I can have that mill sponson Mark 1 and actually add a gun, or I can adjust it. So yes, let's adjust it. Once I adjust it, the button Edit in Engineering pops up. And editing in engineering is going to allow you to adjust the specific part. So I'm now looking at just the part, not the whole vehicle. Just this one part, this sponson. Over here on the bottom end, much like with the Design Bureau, you have a whole bunch of options. Right now, not that many, because we haven't really researched a whole lot. Right now, this part can only be made out of wrought iron. I imagine that if you get more materials researched, you're going to be able to do a whole lot more with that. Now, when it comes to riveted assembly, you can have either the riveted assembly Mark 1 or the Mark 2. Why would you want to get the Mark 2? It has a couple of these different adjustments. You can see that the structure increases by 10%. The crew safety, however, takes a hit. These things are not as safe. And apparently, the Mark, or it's not the Mark II, it's the MLA2, I'm not sure what that means. These are cheaper. You don't pay a lot for them. You can see that there is less man-hour cost. There is apparently no steel cost. But if we are going to make this thing as safe as possible for the crew, I want to have the riveted assembly Mark 1. Next up, an empty component. Not everything is going to be used. We have a vision port, a turret door, and a turret hatch. Fine. So this is sort of an upgraded variant of the mill sponson, and thereby it is the mill sponson Mark II, which you can adjust over here in the bottom. With that, I can say I want to save this, I want to assign the engineers to it, and I want to get this thing ready. So we're going to assign the engineers. This is going to get built, and once it's built, we can start using it on the tanks. Because right now, it's just a blueprint. So let's get that thing built, and in the meanwhile, go back to the main factory grounds. So that's Design Bureau and Engineering Bureau. What else do we have? Well, we have research for future vehicles. This also allows me to show you that we have a whole bunch of additional facilities that can get attached to your buildings at some cost. We have different labs that you can add, fundamental labs, an all-purpose facility that can provide additional equipment and expertise to any research project. So the bonuses that this thing gives is really small, it's just 3%, but it does go for both structure, mobility, and firepower. So you can add this to, well, basically every type of project. Not so much with the ergonomics project. This is going to give you more engineers that can work on a line. So this will speed up the amount of research that you can do because you can simply add more people there. However, people are not free, as we'll see in a bit. Next up, Breakthrough Bureau. It's going to allow for out-of-the-ordinary questions to commonplace engineering challenges, giving you a 2% breakthrough chance. If that happens, you instantly complete a project, which is really nice, because these things can take a while. But if you get a breakthrough, it's going to go in 1 day. Now this way you have all sorts of different bonuses. Considering we're fighting in World War I, we are fighting the War of the Trenches. We're going to have to be building tanks to fight in the trenches. So I'm thinking, how about something like a firepower lab to give more bonuses to firepower research? Highly specialized facility that can greatly enhance any firepower research project. It's going to take you 10,000 of your money. I have 500k, so I should be fine. I have 21 days before this is completed, and it's going to give me a 15% bonus, so I'll gladly take one of those. I don't really feel like the Breakthrough Bureau is going to be that valuable right from the get-go. Mobility Lab, 15% research bonus. Structure Lab, more armor. Seeing as we're breaking through trenches and breaking through lines, I think mobility is going to be a bit more valuable. And let's go with also adding one of those. You also got a few others, materials, components, innovative division, which gives you a 25% reduction for modification nodes. So as you're going through the tech tree, which I'll show you in a minute, you can specify different nodes that you want to go through. And with that, this makes that cheaper. And finally, we have the analytics division, dedicated to the evaluation of statistical data and its application to various types of research. In plain English, it's going to give you a discount. That's it. I think discounts, and especially percentage-based discounts, are best taken early on, so let's use that. And then we can go into the research line. Much like design lines and manufacturing lines, you can have different research lines. There are essentially 3 tech trees, and as you can see, they just go to here, to the end. It's not like I can scroll through these, so this is, again, a show that this is an alpha game. We also have firepower, and we have mobility. Eventually, we'll be able to get a V-shaped engine, petrol, octane 55, which is going to give me more operational range. Would be very useful so that we can go like maybe more than 20 kilometers, if that. When it comes to firepower, you can not only research different types of weaponry, such as the improved naval gun or the medium feed machine gun, but also eventually different types of shells. This thing ends with the Enhanced Common Round SAP Shell Mark III or HE Mark III. High explosive properties will penetrate the armor before exploding. So you can see how much damage it does, how much kinetic penetration it does. And this is where you're sort of going to be interacting with the enemy. Because if you find that the enemy, in this case Germany, is using heavily armored machines, you might find that you need to research more weaponry that is geared towards kinetic pen. If you just do a whole lot of damage, but the shells simply won't pen the target, then what use is the damage? This is going to be more important once you actually are able to go right through the target. So in that sense, this is going to be influenced by not only your choices, but also sort of how the enemy performs with their vehicles. And again, once you have picked a research project, let's say I want to have the naval gun. I have researched the Hotchkiss 6-pounder. I have researched a lot of things, but what I have not yet researched is the solid shot round. So let's get this thing researched. It's going to take me 13 days. It is not going to cost me any money or material. So all I can do is just say, I want to have this and I want to start that. The engineers will be committed. Yes, let's begin. And in 14 days, we'll have the solid shot round. What other options do we have? Well, we have the administration. And the admin building, again, can be augmented with all sorts of facilities, which is not something I'm going to go into right now. What I want to do is actually go into the personnel, because we have a bunch of workers. Most of them are empty, because especially currently we don't have any production. But we do have engineers, and they are working. 20 at the design bureau, 20 at the engineering bureau. Depending on how well or what type of building you build, you can actually set more engineers to work there. Because you can eventually upgrade this to a design bureau tier 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. You can see that engineers per line is currently 60. So I can assign more engineers per line, and I can also have more design lines. So you can be working on more designs at the same time. Now, why am I not designing one thing right now? Well, we're still waiting for the engineering bureau to complete. We also have the museum. I won't go into this right now because we really don't have anything to show yet. It's not like it's 1950 and we're looking back at our first tanks. The Proving Grounds is where you test out your tank. The test drive, same thing. And finally, we have the production hall. This is where the magic happens. This is where the tanks actually get built once you actually have any tanks, which right now I do not. So let's move time forward a bit and get all of the things done and researched. And here we go. Greetings, my name is Douglas Murray and I have been appointed as your advisor by the executive board. The British High Command has declared plans to rapidly raise at least 4 tank regiments. We should start designing our new tank model right away and have it ready by the time the first contract is announced. Please go to the design bureau and begin the design process as soon as possible. Now, I have already done that because I am waiting for the engineering bureau to complete. That's only going to take me a few more days. As I'm waiting for research to complete and designs to get completed, the battle for Lorraine has started. Western Front becomes the stage for a Battle of Lorraine as troops of Germany and Britain engage in close quarters combat within the labyrinth network of trenches. Bayonets fix and grenades explode as soldiers fight tooth and nail for every inch of ground. If only they had a tank. If only they had a tank. If only I could help. And I can, because the design bureau is just about completed. The Germans, sorry, the government, not the Germans, I bet the Germans too though. The Germans and the government at large are saying we need more tanks because we have had some early successes with the tank on the battlefield. And they are ready to form the additional tank regiments, which is kind of what the guy already said. But this is more the official government news. Now, with that male sponsor ready, I can go back into design lines and continue working on the design that I was working on before. This one. We had the armored plate, and now I also have the Sponson Mark II. I'd like to take 2 of those. So we're going to add the Sponson Mark II on both sides. Is it... Yeah, it's installed on both sides. Now let's add some guns. We have the Hotchkiss QF 6-pounder. And again, you can adjust this if you so desire. Right now, I will not. I simply want to have a tank ready by the time that the government is going to say, hey, here's a contract. I need you to build me some tanks. And I can say, well, I have great news. I have a tank all ready for you. I can also add the Lewis Mark I over here. It is going to require basically yet another crew member. And crew members is something you can see on the right-hand side. You need commander points, you need drivers, gunners, loaders, and mechanics. I think no tank is complete without a machine gun, so let's add the Lewis Mark I, and then move on to the next tab, which is selected crew. Now, in order to have this tank do well, you're going to need a bunch of these things, these crew members. So first, we're going to have a commander. We're going to have a driver, and that immediately satisfies the driver. The commander is not fully satisfied. We only got 4 for 5. I think the commander might have a bit too much to do. We're going to have a couple of gunners, because gunners are, well, highly required. So there's 10. Let's add a few more loaders. And in order to keep the whole thing driving, we're going to need a few mechanics. So this is a crew that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys in basically a coffin with tracks. Rather them than me. I don't exactly find it very... a nice prospect to sit in one of these things, although it might be preferable over being out there on the front line inside the trenches. But that's a whole different discussion. Now the game is saying, we have some issues. The attribute group has 6 defects. Isn't that lovely? The crew awareness is pretty bad, but right now I can't exactly go through everything yet because the game's saying, well, you need to complete the design process first before you're able to fix that. Okay, fine. We can have some additional stuff in here. It would be nice if the guns carry some ammunition. I want to have that... oh, sorry. I can't have that on duplicates. So we're going to have... and this is where, again, research comes in. We can have different types of shells, but I only have one. I only got the HE Mark I. I'm still waiting for the research to get the better shells out. And once that is done, I can add different types of shells to shoot different types of targets. I also want a standard ammunition for the machine gun, and I want to have fuel for the engine. So, moving on, we can set a paint job. We're going to go onto the trench area. I don't think we'll have any real kind of benefit beyond looking like a speck of mud. So let's go for that. Now, again, we do have all sorts of issues. It has 7 defects. Agility is probably god-awful. The ship. Sorry, I'm usually doing naval games. Obstacle step height. How well can this thing climb things? And again, this is going to be important as you get different contracts. The game might say, well, it's nice that you have a tank, but your tank doesn't traverse the trenches that we need to do. Or the government is going to say, here's a contract, we need a tank that can do X, Y, and Z, and can only cost a amount of money. So in that case, you're going to have to design a tank that is up to the government's spec. And that is the whole challenge of the game. Can you do that? Can you research that? Can you do that faster than your competitors? And can you still turn a profit? Because it is right there in the name, Trade Tycoon. We are in this for the money. Now, this is going to be the Mark I. Sure. Since I just started watching Band of Brothers. So this is going to be the Winter's tank. And it's going to weigh 29 tons. That's quite a bunch. and I can assign the engineers to build it. So now all of the 60 engineers in the production line are going to get to work. They're going to build one Winter's tank. And by some miracle, they can do that in a mere 18 days. So let's wait for that and get the tank ready. As our tank is getting built, we can also see how the war is progressing. Now, I haven't really learned how to read this screen yet. We have on the left side the British, the right hand side the Germans. I can see that these guys are eager, that's great. And I imagine that as we start building tanks and fulfilling contracts for the government, getting these tanks out there, it's not just going to be basically artillery and horses and infantry. It's also going to be more tank companies. Companies A, B, C, and D. Right now, I don't know how all these things are going to do. I don't even know if they exist yet, because especially the tank companies, they don't have a commander. So I'm eagerly awaiting news from the government as to what exactly they find that they require on the battlefield. We're still waiting for the tank to complete production. It is very much work in progress. In the meanwhile, our research bureau has completed the research of that first new type of shell. So it arrives in a pretty decent time frame. I can also have the female Mark I and the RHA steel. This is going to give me more kinetic resistance. So if I decide to build my tanks out of this stuff, it's going to make my tank more kinetically resistant as well as more shock resistant. It is also potentially going to be heavier. So again, especially as you're probably going through the ages and finding that you have lighter materials or the choice to go with heavier materials, which are potentially stronger, do you want to focus on light tanks, perhaps? Speaking of, we're going to need... Yeah, let's go for a different type of hull. We already have the rhomboid type of hull. I want to have the ability to add a new type of sponson. So let's go for the female sponson, get ready on that. Something that you do need to consider as you're running a company is the fact that there could be issues with personnel. As we're increasing our operation, the risk of fire and human injury are growing more significant. Visit the administration quarter and construct fire and medical stations to reduce these threats. Very well, let's see what I can do with that. That's going to be the fire station and the medical station. The medical station reduces accident for all buildings. I hope that this is going to make sure my engineers don't die on the job or burn down on the job. We can also have all sorts of other buildings in the admin. I haven't really covered this yet. We've got the lobbying office. Influential lobbying. Professional lobbyists will help you increase your influence in numerous countries. Very nice. This could mean that I can have a better reputation and that I'm more likely to get awarded the contract, which is nice to have because more contracts is more money. Now, if you find that at some point you're running a little low on the money, you might need to get a loan. Right now, we don't have a loan, and I don't feel like at the moment I need a loan, because for now, yes, I'll be burning a whole bunch of money, and I'm very eagerly awaiting a contract from the government. So I want to hold on to my money for a bit, and first see how we're doing. Now, what I have not yet covered in this particular building is the fact that you can have administrators. We have Eustace Giancourt, apparently a Frenchman. We have Walter Wilson and we have William Tritton. These guys all have different bonuses, and you can assign them to a specific building. This guy, for example, Eustace, has a ton of bonuses. One of them is factory grounds reduction cost, or factory accident reduction cost. We have reduction of time for hull projects, for turret focus, for primary weapons. This guy sounds like he's really well versed in, or really well suited to go onto the research building. Now, once you have these people hired, you can actually assign them to a building. So I can say Eustace is somebody I want to hire, and he's going to get here in 5 days. That's fine. Once you get here, I might assign him to either research or design or maybe engineering, and have him help out there with all of his various talents. Now, like I said, I don't want to spend too much money right now. I don't want to have to get a loan because it is a pretty high interest rate. And I'm not at all interested in that right now. So, once again, waiting for the tank design to complete. And then I can actually start building the tank. And perhaps we can even test drive it. Well, well, well. Britain announces a new contract for 12 tanks. A new regiment, Company A, is being hastily raised as a sign of increased trust in tanks from the higher command. This regiment is to be equipped with 12 tanks of a supply type and accompany other tank regiments in the ongoing campaign. Very good. So we finally have a contract. The contract requires that we have a crew performance of 44 or better. We need to have 63 for mobility, 155. The desired price for the tank is about 43k. I can offer either more or less. And once I have, for example, everything set and I have a suitable design, you can see how much profit you stand to gain and how much of a deadline you might have. I can say, well, the desired deadline might be 11th of September 1914, but I can actually do that a heck of a lot sooner. I can get these things by August 20th, for example. I can also get you more tanks than the required amount by that date. And I can do it cheaper. The game is going to say, well, you have a total of X amount of profit. If you do not, however, meet this, it's going to cost you 43k. So be very careful. All this gets you a success score. How appealing is your offer? Can you actually meet the offer? Let's see what the competitors are offering, because they have the Odysseus out there, which has a success score of 102 to 146. So I want to see how well my tank would measure up against that. Let's see what that design eventually is going to get as a score. Now that my tank has been designed, I can add it to this requirements, but we have a few defects. The total number of tank flaws discovered after the design was finished. We have to amend these defects in order to lessen their negative effects on both attributes and tank reputation. So we have a ton of work ahead of us in order to get this thing actually feasible. So our tank isn't exactly perfect right from the get-go. I'm not surprised, it's our first one. Let's see how it does at the proving grounds. I'm going to give it a trial range. I'm going to get the winters tested over here and see how we can get rid of all of these defects. So it's going to take 26 days to test it. And I believe that I can actually test drive it myself. Let's go for the Hatfield range and start. Here we are. And this is one of the potentially most fun parts of the game. You can actually, once you have it completed, test drive your tank. Can we traverse trenches? Yes. Apparently we can. Can I fire the guns? I can. And here we can find our first bit of obstacles. Can we not only traverse trenches, but also climb this? It has to gain 300 points on the proving ground. We got 9 minutes to do that. Oh, up you go. I don't care about going down there, unless I absolutely have to. Okay, right hand side of the gun. Gun swifting. Did we just flat out miss it? Reload. Got it. Okay, we scored 65 points. There are more targets out there. Switch to the machine gun. Got him. We got 75 points. Turning this thing around is not quick. Not exactly unexpected for a tank from 1914. But don't expect to be zipping around the battlefield like this is an AMX-13. It doesn't exactly do that. Nor probably will it. Okay, enemy tank spotted. The Germans are here. We instantly killed it. That's another couple points. Let's move up. More targets. Right side of the tank. I think this might be better for the machine gun, because we can fire that faster. Advance in the direction of the target. Good lord, this thing is mightily inaccurate. That is certainly something that we need to work on better research. Because this is not exactly going to win any prizes when it comes down to accuracy. As long as you can make money with it. Yeah, the reload's pretty bad, and the gun angle is also pretty bad. I don't exactly have enough ammunition for the Hotchkiss, I think. We also have... Actually, would that work? Might use the tank? No. That's interesting. So just using the tank to drive over the target, at least right now, on the targeting range, does not work. Doesn't necessarily mean that that is a feature. It could very well be that this is something that is not yet in the alpha, or this is entirely designed to test how well your guns can do. Either option can work. Bit of testing to go around the corner here. 4.5 minutes left. We already got 255 points out of 300, so we should be fine. I wonder if I get points for coming in pretty early. Seeing if that's going to give me any additional points. 270 points. $285. We might actually get it done. Tank right hand side. Tank destroyed. Infantry. Mission complete. 13 out of 15 waypoints, 15 out of 24 soft targets, and 3 out of 4 hard targets. Total score 300. Exceptional performance. This gives me assembly points. Success in attack will greatly depend on methodical and punctual deployment. So I get plus 20 deployment phase and plus 5 repair phase. I don't exactly know what these mean. I do wonder if this is going to mean that my tank has passed the inspection. Because not only does it drive, it also shoots and can pen various different targets. So, is that going to satisfy the contract? Is that going to make this tank viable? No, she still has a bunch of defects, which I believe I will have to go through the design bureau in order to make it happen. Unless I can just sell this thing with the issues that it has. Let's see. Because my success score is really high. And if I'm understanding this correctly, as long as my success score is higher than the Odysseus, I can actually get this contract. Because my tank right now is really appealing. And it's also going to be really expensive. Okay, apparently that's a bit much for the government. Let's see when they will actually accept it. I have to be above 146. There we go, 155. Let's take a bit of margin, 170. So, I can get 12 Winters type tanks from Currahee Armored. And it's going to mean that, yes, I live up to all the requirements. They require 44, I get them 45. Especially protection is good, firepower is good, and you got firepower with hard targets and soft targets, so that's the secondary weapon. If you find that you might need more ammo, for example this one, it says, I don't have enough ammo. So I actually have an insufficient amount of ammo for the contract, but I make up for that in different categories. So I can say, yeah, I'll apply this, I'll send this design in, and if it works, I'm going to get a 609,000 profit out of that, which I would very much like. I'm going to leave you guys here. This is a quick overview of the alpha. There are definitely things that I have missed, such as reverse engineering, but if you like, then I will definitely do another video on it and show you more of the game. Because, like I said, there are more different things that you can research, there are more different things that you can look into. There are many parts that you can do engineering to or change the design of. It's entirely up to you. So long as you make money, because that's eventually the goal. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. Linked down in the description is more about Arms Trade Tycoon Tanks and showing how you can get into it in the closed alpha. If you already like what you see, but you don't want to get into the closed alpha, you can always wishlist it and keep checking in on it as it continues developing. I'm very interested to see what you think down below in the comment section. So by all means, let me know. I, for one, I'm looking forward to it. I think that this is something that can keep you going for a long time. It's going to be an interesting trade-off that you'll have to make. Maneuverability, firepower, or armor. The holy, yet generally small, more difficult to combine trinity of tank warfare. Thank you guys for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. And I'll see you soon for more videos.